Okay, when you've got a more complicated image to cut out, well, the magic isn't going to be very effective. An image is sort of like, well, there's areas of this that are fairly simple, but if I wanted to create a more precise cutout, what I do is I use what's called a layer mask. So I've got an image here from a scan, and it's come in with as a background here. If I double click that, turn it into a layer. So that gives me the ability to create transparency. Then what I do with the image selected, I hit this, which is add layer mask, and that gives me a layer mask alongside my image. I'm also going to turn this image into a RGB image rather than a grayscale, so that I can use color in a bit. So the way this works is that layer mask, in general, the way that you work with it is you paint. And you paint in either black or white or grey. And as I paint here in black, you can see it's creating transparency. And if you look over here on the layer mask, you can see areas where it's been painted, and you can see it's created a sort of a silhouette on the layer mask where I've painted in my transparency. So what I have to do with this is I'm interested in painting around the shape of the object that I want to cut out. So what I'd have to do is with my paintbrush and with a small paintbrush, when you want a fairly sharp line, you want a hard brush like this, so you want to get a fairly precise line around the edge. If you use a soft brush like this, you can create a very soft transparency, which means that there's degrees of transparency between completely transparent and completely opaque. But for what I'm doing here, I want a fairly sharp edge, so I want it to be quite a hard brush with maybe a little bit of softness, but maybe about 5%. So what I have to do with this is work around the edge. And if you can't see what you're doing with the edge very well, what I do is I create a layer, I choose a very vivid color, and I fill that layer with that color, and I drag that layer behind the image that I'm working with. So what that means is that when I paint along the edge here, I'm not painting pink here, I'm painting transparency, and what you can see is the pink transparent layer coming through, because it's the layer that I'm working on is becoming transparent. And the nice thing about the brush is that if I make a bodge and make a mistake, if I switch my color here to white, I can just paint the image back in and have another go at creating that line. So then if I switch back to black and look at my line here, and I can do things like maybe adjust the brush down even smaller. You can work with very, very kind of small areas down to a pixel and get a very precise cutout, and that means that your cutouts won't have any kind of white. In this case, if I didn't cut this out precisely, I'd get a white halo around my image when I'd come to use it with other images. So this applies to doing photo montages and working later on in Premiere if you want to use graphics. So I'd go around my whole object until it was cut out like this, and then I can get rid of my pink layer here, and then so when I'm finished, I can then apply this layer to the image. So if I right click and choose apply layer mask, that fixes the areas I've painted transparent, and then I can save this as a Photoshop file or as a PNG file.